they structured Garrett Wilson's contract very similar to the way they structured Sauce Gardner's contract in terms of they could have traded him today for minimum dead cap going forward. That also makes me wonder how many young guys are going to want to sign with this regime or these kind of deals if they're like, man, the guy that signed the deal couldn't even make it 6 months before he got shipped somewhere else. Is this, again, I know this is maybe me overthinking it, Chris. I don't know what you think is, but like my thought was beyond this of like, what if you find that guy next year and then you want to sign him in 3 years and they're like, well, the last guy that signed these big deals, they shipped him out 6 months later. We'll just end up having to change the way they construct contracts with bigger guys, with bigger name guys down the road.
The trade deadline has come and gone in the National Football League, and the New York Jets are the talk of the town. Welcome back in another edition of the NY Sports Index. That is Jamie Eisner. I am Chris Schubert. This is going to be a therapy session for me.
For you, yeah. And
Jamie, how are you?
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, I wore my Draft Network hat because there's a lot of draft picks flying around today at the NFL trade deadline as we're recording this. The deadline came and went about an hour ago, so all of the last-second deals are done. There was a couple like minor trades that happened a little bit after the deadline. But, yeah, I think let's just jump right into it, Chris. Let's start with the shocking news. Look, we knew Breece Hall could be traded. Turns out he wasn't traded. We knew, other players on the roster. Really, actually, the guys that we thought would be traded from the Jets didn't get traded, and the guys we didn't think were going to get traded from the Jets did get traded, including two really big-name players. But first one that shocked today, Chris, Sauce Gardner heads to the Indianapolis Colts to return 2 first-round picks. They're picking the 2026 NFL draft, the upcoming one, the 2027 NFL draft in the first round, and then you take a flyer on A.D. Mitchell, the wide receiver that kind of fell out of favor. Very talented, but got some growing up to do on the field in terms of just his on-field plays. Then you may know one of the Colts' 2 losses could be directly charged to A.D. Mitchell dropping the football before he got into the end zone. But the Jets need more bodies at wide receiver, but that's not the key here. The key here is right after, really, not even a year after signing Sauce Gardner to a monster extension, he is gone for 2 first-round picks. And Chris, I want your initial reaction on 2 fronts. Obviously, I want you to talk about the return that you got, but I also want you to talk about what this statement means for the new / current regime in the New York Jets, who basically today said, we're willing to strip down anything that came before us in order to put ourselves in a position to completely rebuild through the draft the way we envision.
Yeah, you said not even a year. It's not even been 6 months since the ink has dried on that contract extension for Sauce Gardner. It hasn't even kicked in yet. Doesn't kick in for another season and a half. Kicks in after the 2026 season. I have plenty of thoughts. I'll start here. This is more than fair value for a player of Sauce Gardner's caliber. A player at this position normally doesn't fetch 2 first-round picks plus a player. So from a value perspective, the Jets did well here. It was hard to say no. From a value proposition perspective, and we'll get to the Quinnen Williams deal a little bit later, but in general, the Jets have loaded themselves up with 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, so you can't really get mad at that. But you asked about the regime, and I think top line, get comfortable, everybody, because Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji aren't going anywhere. They are going to be given the keys to this franchise for at least the next couple of years. They are not given the permission less than 6 months after giving out this contract extension to trade this player, to trade Quinnen Williams without some type of assurance that they are going to be here next season and be able to operate this offseason in picking their next quarterback. And that's where I have some reservations, because I'm still on the fence about what this regime is. I'm still on the fence of what they have in a coach. I'm still on the fence in what they have as a GM. He's had 1 draft and 1 offseason. His draft returns are, he hit on Armand Membu. Looks like he's hit on Mason Taylor. Other than that, there are some question marks. Free agency, Brandon Stevens has gotten better as the season has progressed, but Cisco, it was a 1-year signing, but that didn't look like a great signing until Cisco got hurt. So it's still such a mixed bag that there is some real reservation on my part to say, hey, get excited, Jets fans, because your team's going to be able to get their next franchise quarterback and build around that guy with all this draft capital and 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, and they've got 2 second-round picks in this upcoming draft, and they have all these picks. Sure, The Jets had 3 first-round picks and took Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Jermaine Johnson, and they have 0 playoff appearances and 0 playoff wins to show for it. So it's not as easy to say, oh, they have all these picks, things are going to work out. You have to make the picks. You have to hit on the picks. And not to be this guy, but with those picks, you have to find another Sauce Gardner. You have to find another Quinnen Williams. So it puts a lot of pressure on this regime, and it puts a lot of pressure on a regime that so far doesn't have a long enough resume for me to fully believe that they're going to be able to do this correctly, to land this plane and to get this team back in contention. And you're also asking the fan base. You're asking
to land this jet.
You're asking the fan base to accept that 2026 isn't going to be their year. 2027 is probably not going to be their year. You're asking them to accept more pain for the rest of this year and the next 2 seasons, and I just don't know how many fans are going to be willing to sign up for that.
Well, the reality is you signed up to be a Jets fan, so you already should know that 2026, 2027 aren't going to be your years anyway because they're on the calendar. The idea here, Chris, and I agree with you completely, what this all hinges on is your belief in this organization to hit on these picks and to continue to build the franchise that in their vision successfully. Because all that they did today is give themselves lottery tickets. Now, those lottery tickets could be finding the quarterback that they so desperately need to find. Maybe that's an option, whether it's this year or next year, whether that's a veteran, whether that's a rookie. Can they do that? Can they hit on some of these picks? The idea is they're not going to go 5 for 5 on those first round picks. They're not going to hit 100%. No team does, period. But do they hit on key positions? Can they use the draft capital they have, whether again through a rookie or a veteran, to find the franchise quarterback? Can they find the offensive weapons to go around to complement Garrett Wilson and 2 young tackles who you feel pretty good about right now? Can they find the pieces on the defensive side of the ball to replace the pieces that they gave up, hopefully cheaper, and in their way in 2 or 3 years maybe get similar production for a lot less dollars so they can use that cap space elsewhere? This is a complete and utter reset from the Jets, and a one I didn't anticipate coming. Now, we thought Jermaine Johnson, we thought Breece Hall, a couple other pieces, might have been available. We talked about them at various points on this podcast, but at no point did we talk about Quinnen Williams. At no point did we talk about Sauce Gardner. And losing those 2 pieces at this point is a real indication that this is a long term rebuild, which at the end of the day is unfortunate, but it is also probably gives the Jets as a franchise the best chance long term to try to get it right. But again, that all hinges on, do you believe in the people in that building? Because they are the ones that are now, the pressure is all on them, because now they can't say they were hamstrung by any contracts, they were hamstrung by this, or not that they were going to, but there is no excuses left. You moved basically almost all of your big deals. You have more draft capital in terms of value, and maybe even in terms of volume, than any other team in the NFL over the next 3 drafts, next 2 drafts in particular. You are putting yourself in a position that you can truly build a team in your image. But will you do it right? And will you hit on those picks? And will you be able to sustain a team that's worth watching at least? Because the issue is going to be, and again, I can't imagine these things all come together without Woody Johnson knowing and approving. But you have to be pretty sure you're going to get a really long leash to make these decisions, at least in the front office. You have to be sure you're going to get time, because when you're moving guys, and by the way, it's not like these guys were in their 30s. You're moving guys in their 20s. And yes, they're on big deals. I guess one of them hadn't started their big deal yet, but you signed him to a big deal. You're moving these guys to say, we are shifting we thought when we signed these guys, we had a window coming up to be competitive in the next 3 to 5 years. We are now taking those 3 to 5 year window and shifting it 3 years into the future. That's essentially what you're doing in your mind. Now, the problem is, like you said, you now need to find the players to make up for the players that you just moved away. You need to find another Sauce Gardner. You need to find another Williams. In the meantime, you still have to find your quarterback. You still have to find your wide receiver too. You still have to find your long-term running back. The interior offensive line still needs work. You need help at all levels of your defense now. So it's going to be a complete rebuild process for the New York Jets. And while they've given themselves enough capital to have this rebuild, I will say it for the third time, I think, on the show, it all matters to what you think the front office can do. So if I look at this in this straight binary, which everybody's going to do outside of the Jets sphere, who won the trade, who lost the trade, who did well, who did not well. From a value standpoint, I do believe the Jets did well in the Sauce Gardner trade. I do believe they also did well in the Quinnen Williams trade. The issue is going to be, it is still a one in the hand, two in the bush scenario. And the issue is still going to be, this is a signal that we are pushing our window down the road. Can this infrastructure bring in the right players? We don't know yet. And that's not to say that they necessarily shouldn't have done any of these moves. I know Williams a little bit more so than Sauce, because Williams, you're looking at soon another contract extension for him versus you already signed Sauce. But one, that's a little bit concerning. And two, the other concerning thing is, if I know they decided in all the reports out that, hey, we're not trading Garrett Wilson, we're not touchable, teams called we don't want, but they structured Garrett Wilson's contract very similar to the way they structured Sauce Gardner's contract, in terms of they could have traded him today for minimum dead cap going forward. That also makes me wonder how many young guys are going to want to sign with this regime or these kind of deals, if they're like, man, the guy that signed the deal couldn't even make it 6 months before he got shipped somewhere else. Is this, again, I know this is maybe me overthinking it, Chris. I don't know what you think is, but like, my thought was, beyond this, of like, what if you find that guy next year and then you want to sign him in 3 years and they're like, well, the last guy that signed these big deals, they shipped him out 6 months later. We'll just end up having to change the way they construct contracts with bigger guys, with bigger name guys down the road. I don't know. I guess I say all of this to say is, we obviously are not going to know whether the Jets won or lost this trade for multiple years, but I will caution that there's a difference between lottery tickets and the actual thing. And that is what we're going to have to see. Can the Jets use all of their lottery tickets to rebuild? And most importantly, can they use them to find a franchise quarterback? I think all sins will be forgiven. All these deals will be forgiven. Everybody that bought a Sauce Gardner jersey will forgive them if over the next couple of years they can find the player that they think is their franchise quarterback. Can they find someone that looks to them like Drake May looks right now, or like Caleb Williams looks right now? Can they find that guy? If not, they're probably not going to win this deal, even if they get other good players with those picks. You have to get the quarterback right. And now, I don't think they're in this. Wouldn't touch a quarterback in 2026. And the reason I say this is, this team is now even worse constructed than we were talking about when we were talking about them drafting a quarterback last week. And we could talk about how the numerous failings that the Jets have had with quarterbacks in recent years, how much of it is bad drafting and how much of it is putting guys in a bad situation and asking them to do too much too soon. And, maybe Zach Wilson was never going to be good, but it turns out Sam Darnold was. And so maybe this is a situation where it's not even so much about worrying about what the quarterback class and what people think of Mendoza and Simpson and Moore and some of these guys this year. Maybe this is more of, at this point, especially with your picks, you need to just rebuild this roster. You've got some key pieces on offense, at least, for that quarterback. You've got the tackles, you got a receiver, but there's a lot more work to be done before you even think about bringing a quarterback into this scenario. And to me, like you said, Chris, you're not going to be competitive next year. You're probably not going to be competitive for the next 2 years. Does ownership continue to stick with everybody for 2 more years? Because it's easy to say right now on November 4th, 2025, that I like the long-term plan. Well, if it's November 4th, 2026, and you're in the same spot, and then November 4th, 2027, and you're in the same spot, all of a sudden, are you rethinking your idea of how patient you are? I don't know.
I think it's hard to extrapolate out what this team is going to look like 6 months from now, what it's going to look like at the beginning of 2026, what it's going to look like at the beginning of 2027. So I think the right way to look at these deals, or at least the way that I'm choosing to look at what happened today, is, how do I feel knowing the information I know in this moment? And it is really hard for me to get past the trust and faith that Woody Johnson, at least today, is putting in a head coach and a GM that, this is no knock on them, don't have the resume to warrant that level of trust. Because in the middle of you talking there about, Sauce Gardner less than 6 months after signing the deal getting shipped out and what that's going to mean for, Olufashanu, Armand Membu, other Mason Taylor, other guys that, a couple years down the road will be put in a similar spot. I mean, Jamie, my concern is this what you sold Garrett Wilson on when you signed him to his contract extension? Is that when you sat down with him to ink this deal, did you tell him that you were going to trade Sauce 6 months later? Did you tell him that you were going to absolutely tear down the roster? You didn't. And so, yeah, you may have told teams today that you're not interested in trading Garrett Wilson. That doesn't mean in 4 months when the season's over, Garrett Wilson's not making his voice made very clear that he doesn't want to be there anymore.
Oh, no, Chris, I want to talk about this. I think that's definitely going to happen. Bobby said there's no position in football quite like wide receivers when it comes to talking, including those that are even on winning teams. Ask A.J. Brown. But to me, Chris, I'm with you. If I am Garrett Wilson, I am saying I do not want to play here. I did not sign my deal to go into another rebuild for 2 or 3 years. I want out. And I think that's going to happen. And he might play it nicer than some other receivers have. It doesn't seem like he has some of the diva-like qualities that other top receivers do have, and he might go about this more quietly in his demand. But Chris, I would be stunned if there is not a trade demand between now and the start of next season for Garrett Wilson. I would be stunned.
Yeah,
Can you blame him?
No, and I wouldn't blame him at all if he requested a trade, because this is not what he was sold. And that's why it goes back to, it just feels very odd to me. And it's just something that I can't get on board on. And I know at least I am being very glass half empty. I do want to be glass half full and explain a lot of the pros of what they did here, because I don't think it's cut and dry one way or the other. This really is a kind of down the middle sort of thing. But it just feels like, to your point, they're not going to hit on all 5 of these first round picks. And it just feels like, okay, let's say you hit on 2 of them. You're still really far away from competing if Garrett Wilson does leave, in addition to all the players that are going to be gone, in addition to Breece Hall probably leaving at the end of the season. It just, there's the concepts of a plan, but I don't know if there actually really is a fully fledged plan at this point. I think they saw immense value on the table and they said, we can't say no to this, and they're going to try to figure it out later. And I keep going back to, this is a GM who's had 1 draft and the returns are mixed. This is a coach who has 1 win to his record. And Jamie, this is the other part too. I'm still in evaluation mode on Aaron Glenn. And now I don't know how to approach the remainder of the season, because he doesn't have Sauce Gardner and he doesn't have Quinn Williams. How am I supposed to evaluate
defense? Yeah, and so here's the thing, and here's the way I look at this as well, Chris. If we want to take a more half full approach, and by the way, I'm not pessimistic on it. I said I like the value they got in return. You just have to understand the risk of what you did. You know what I mean? Like, you took a $20 bill and you bought $20 in scratchers. That could be anything. It could be $1 million. It could be $3. And I think that's what you have to understand with these drafts. And what I can also look at a scenario where you look at their picks they have in 2027, for example, and this is a team that maybe adds a couple key defensive players in this draft, and next draft drafts Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith to add to Garrett Wilson.
Can I push back on something you said earlier in the pod? Because you and I we're going to butt heads on this, I think, for the rest of the pod for this year till we die.
Okay.
They should take a quarterback this year.
Ooh, okay.
Do you want to know why?
Okay. Why?
Because they should do the Arizona Cardinals thing when they took Josh Rosen and it didn't work, and they immediately had the number 1 overall pick, and then they
keep trying.
Take as many swings as possible. You have unlike other teams in this similar spot, because you have the luxury of failing. You have the luxury of it not working out.
Here's what I will say though. There are 2 points to this, Chris. I'm glad you brought this up, actually, because I do think you and I are going to butt heads on this. One, I understand what you're saying. I think you at that point would need to it puts you in a weird spot, because then you either have to be as bad as Josh Rosen was as a rookie to easily say, okay, man, we're done with this. Mm-hmm. Or they have to be as good as like a Jaden Daniels was his rookie year, or CJ Stroud his rookie year, to be like, okay, we're definitely not taking a quarterback. If they fall anywhere in the middle there, you're still in a massive conundrum going into the 2027 draft. So I don't know if that works out as easily unless you get a more binary, yes, this is working, or no, this is not working. My caveat to that will be, it depends who's available. It depends on your evaluation. If you believe, and by the way, I'm not saying hang off to 2027 because we do this all the time. Everybody thinks the QB class a year from now is always going to be better. Everybody does this.
Jamie, all I heard today was how great the 2027 draft class is. All I heard today was how great the
2027 draft class is very good, but it's not because of the quarterbacks. It's because there's a lot of true sophomores that have been good at the very top. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Dylan Stewarts, the Jeremiah, Ryan Williams, like those guys. Like, yeah, Simmons in Texas. Like, that's why it's being talked about. But we're talking about the very tippy top of the draft. When we're talking about quarterbacks, the one thing I do know is that whenever you get an extra year of tape on guys, more warts show up. So I'm not necessarily saying the Jets should wait because the 2027 quarterback class is necessarily better. I am saying that I worry about playing a rookie quarterback on what I believe the 2026 New York Jets football team will be. And I don't necessarily think that anybody in the league has patience anymore with young quarterbacks to give them that time. So, but the caveat to what I said, Chris, is that you have to make your own evaluations. There are 3 quarterbacks in this class right now that could come out. And by the way, all 3 of them, one of them's probably coming out for sure. The other 2 aren't a guarantee. And that's Fernando Mendoza, who I do think comes out, and then Ty Simpson and Dante Moore. For my evaluation right now, that is the top tier of quarterbacks in this class, and Mendoza is my top pick. But if you fall in love with one of those guys, if you throughout the process say, this quarterback has what it takes to lead my team, you take them, and you worry about it later. But I do have concerns about playing whomever that player is right away on a team that is a complete disaster, roster-wise. So I have that concern. But if you fall in love with Mendoza, if you fall in love with Ty Simpson, you fall in love with Dante Moore, again, I'm not sure. Of the 3, Dante Moore is probably the least likely to come out, and then there's Ty Simpson, and there's Mendoza. Maybe there's somebody else you like. At this point, I'm out on anybody else in the first round. I'm not taking Nussmeier in the first round. I'm not taking Aller in the first round. I'm not taking any of these guys. Anybody else in the first round. So you have to make your own analysis here. It does lend me to think that if they are going to go to this long-term approach, and I say this in the NFL, there's what teams should do and there's what teams actually do. If the Jets are truly committed to this long-term rebuild, and you take a quarterback, bring in a veteran, and start the veteran as long as possible. But you have to be willing to understand you're going to have to navigate fan interest. You're going to have to navigate answering the questions, and you're going to have to hold steady. And unfortunately, the not for long moniker in the NFL always holds true. But if you were truly committed, if you turned off GM firing and franchise mode settings, if you were truly committed, you have that young quarterback that you like, you also bring in a veteran and you start that veteran. And you say, we believe this guy's our guy. We're going to continue building around him. We're going to get him into our system. He's going to learn exactly what he's going to do, and he's going to sit. And I want you to go up there, and I want you to hold up a Patrick Mahomes emoji at every press conference. And anytime anybody asks you that question, when the quarterback's going to start, you just do this. But will they? No. I don't think teams are going to do it because they've shown that they won't. But if that, to me, Chris, is the best case scenario, because to me, it's not that you can't trust a quarterback in this draft. I think the idea that the quarterbacks in this draft are bad is a little bit overrated. I think people have swung the other way because it's not as prolific as people were hoping for, because Arch Manning has had such a rough start to the season, although he's turning things around. Lenore Sellers is struggling a little bit this year. Aller, Klubnik, Beck haven't been good. I get it. But there is talent in this draft. I do think Ty Simpson can be an NFL starting quarterback. I do think Dante Moore can be an NFL starting quarterback. I do think Fernando Mendoza can be an NFL starting quarterback in the right situations with the right amount of time to prepare. And if the Jets are drafting somebody expecting them to start week 1 of 2026, I have a feeling it's going to end poorly for them almost no matter who they pick there. But we'll see.
Well, they have Justin Fields on the roster, so if they wanted to do that, he's under contract for next season, and you could just start him for the entirety of 2026.
Maybe not Justin Fields.
Okay,
with all due respect.
He's under.
I'm done with that. I'm not saying you go out, but like just if you could find the 25th best quarterback in the league. I don't even know. I'm trying to see who the free. I'm going to even look at this right now. NFL free agents 2026. I just want to see. I mean, obviously you can make trades, you can do all that, blah blah blah. But I'm just curious to see like the caliber. Hey, they can get Daniel Jones. No. There isn't really a lot of great, but like even if it's this caliber of, really there is nobody for free agents. You're going to have to make a trade probably. Yeah, because the only free agents are Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers, and we just know how that's going to go. But even like a Marcus Mariota or, and then running somebody like that. Like, I'm not saying you're getting somebody that you expect to be a great player. I'm saying you get somebody that can operate the offense and just hold down the fort for a year. Like, that's what you're looking for. And probably somebody that isn't going to be weird about mentoring the backup quarterback.
I just find it extremely interesting that this is the conversation that we're having while the Jets have the longest professional drought in making the postseason in the 4 professional sports. Like, you are asking, Woody Johnson and company are asking a lot of their fans. They just are. I'm sorry.
No, they are.
They are asking a lot of me right now.
No, Chris, you're not wrong. No, what this organization has put up double middle fingers to their fans, and today was another. It was maybe a third middle finger. They found a third middle finger to put up. I'm not saying, Chris. I want you to understand. I feel bad for Jets fans. They're because they sure ain't going to lower prices next year.
Well,
they sure aren't going to ask you. They aren't going to make the jerseys cheaper. They aren't buying back your Sauce Gardner's jersey. So no, what I'm talking about strictly from how do the Jets as an organization get out of this hole? From a fan standpoint, they've treated you so badly. I get it, but you almost have to hope that they do take this long-term approach
because it's the only
way. Give
way.
Yourselves any chance back. But yes, it is asking a lot from you. And again, if this was this is not how anybody operates in sports, but if this was somebody that had some chutzpah behind them, they would be like, look, we're doing a long-term rebuild and we're going to act like it. All right. We're going to try to make our fan experience, our fan costs, our fan ask as great as we possibly can to account for the fact that we have screwed this up for over a decade now and haven't been able to get us back. And we are now asking you to come along for the ride yet again for many years to come, because even if they get everything right, and let's say everything goes perfect, we're talking, 3 or 4 years before they're competitive?
Well, and that's the thing that concerns me so much, Jamie, is because the drought is as long as it is, the right thing to do with the actions that they took today is to see this through and go through some even more pain to get out on the other side and open up a window where you're actually relevant with a roster that's in the right place, with a quarterback that you've timed up correctly. But because the drought is so large, will Woody Johnson in 6 months change course? Because let's just make something very clear. Today doesn't happen without Woody Johnson's approval. Woody is the one that greenlit the Sauce Gardner contract and spending that kind of money. So you don't undo that 4 months later without his approval. And I hate to constantly boil it down to this, Jamie, but the thought that keeps running through my head in reacting to all of this today is this, for me, isn't about Sauce Gardner and it isn't about Quinnen Williams. It's not about the talent of those two players. Woody Johnson sent a message today that he believes in Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, and I just can't get there yet. I don't have enough to give the affirmative, and today he gave the biggest affirmative that you could possibly give. And that's where this is a struggle for me. That's where I have a tough time putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because I'm sorry, I don't know if Aaron Glenn is the right coach. I don't know if Darren Muji is the right GM. I truly don't know. And now, and I said earlier in the pod, I now have a mixed bag to try to evaluate these two guys the rest of the way with. And it becomes really hard. The picture becomes really murky, because if this team loses out the rest of the way, the built-in excuse is, we traded two of our best defensive players. We're building towards the future. And it's like, I don't know if that's fair, but it feels like the decision has already been made. And now the only thing I can cling hope onto is that they actually see it through. And I have to trust a guy who's made a handful of draft picks as a GM nailing these 5 first-rounders over the next 2 years. It is a tall ask for Woody to ask of this fan base. It just is. And because
It is.
there's no trust that they're going to see it through. There's no trust that they have the right guys yet. This isn't like Baltimore did this today, where Baltimore fans can be like, huh, this is weird, but you know what? I trust the organization. I trust the GM. I trust the coach. We've got the right organizational structure. We can do this. This isn't Kansas City doing something like this. This isn't Buffalo doing something like this, like long-standing Philadelphia, right? This isn't the Jets. The Jets are trying to lay a foundation, and you've now allowed them to bring the bulldozer in and knock everything down when I don't know if they have the permit. I don't know if they have the license to do so.
Yeah, and to your point, maybe a better example would be like, and obviously they don't have the pieces to do this, especially defensively, but like if this was Cincinnati, where you go, yeah, maybe you're still iffy on the coach and the GM situation, but you know what? At least if they tear this down, they trade Hendrickson, they do all these other pieces, they still got Joe Burrow. They still got Jamar Chase. They still got these pieces that they're going to build around. At least maybe they have a chance, where now you literally stripped it down to the studs at this point, especially with the guys that are on expiring deals. So I we'll see. I understand what they're trying to do. I understand the logic behind what they did. And I think from a pure, just look at it as a straight value deal, I thought they got good value for both of the top guys that they traded.
Can I jump in real quick there? Because I don't want any of my criticism of what they did today to ignore the fact that it's hard to say no to the trade packages they got for the two players.
Yes.
Like, nobody thought Sauce Gardner would go for 2 firsts and AD Mitchell. Nobody thought that they would get a 1 for Quinnen Williams, in addition to getting a 2 and Mozzie Smith, right? Like, nobody thought
Which,
that those
by the way,
were
good dart throws. Mitchell and Smith are worth the dart throws to see if you can get something more out of them. Both guys are highly talented that have disappointed so far early in their careers. I know that's not the pieces that anybody wants to talk about today, but I think those are worthwhile dart throws for pretty much no risk.
I think Mozzie's a bigger dart throw than Mitchell. I actually think Mitchell, the only reason why he was movable is the Colts got mad at him for the holding penalty and the drop pass, which I get it. It cost them a game. But like an immensely talented receiver who was producing before that moment, and then they just decided to send him to Siberia. So it does feel like there's way more talent, and you saw it this year with Mitchell. So I'm actually kind of excited to see what that might look like. One more thing on this, at least from my perspective. Do the Jets make all 5 of these first-round picks? Because the thought has also crossed my mind. And a lot of thoughts have crossed my mind today in trying to figure out how I feel about all of this, and I still don't really know. Could they take those picks and trade for a quarterback this offseason? Could the idea of Fernando Mendoza and Tyson, like, could those just be completely off the table? Like, do you want to know the name that popped into my head? Do you want to know the name that popped into my head?
The question is going to be, though, of I would feel better about them trading for a veteran quarterback in the offseason if they had Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams on defense. But yeah, I mean, I guess the concern is going to be, is there going to be a quarterback worthy of that that's going to be available? That's going to be the issue. That is of the right age, because I do think it's possible that, an older quarterback becomes available, but not going to be in the window. And to me, even a guy like Kyler Murray, I don't think that's your franchise quarterback. And I also don't see what the point is of paying a ton of money to a bridge quarterback right now anyway, if you're looking for a young guy. But I guess it's theoretically possible. I don't really see a scenario. I'm trying, and obviously the offseason, especially these last few off seasons, have been wild. There's always been some wild trade, especially involving a quarterback. I just don't, as I'm looking around the league, I don't see
2 names.
Okay. You have 2 names. Okay. Hit me with them, because I don't see names.
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. That's a good name. I just don't know if I believe he's that guy either, but but that falls in the correct bucket. Who's the second name?
This one is way more unlikely. I just want to make it very clear while I'm saying this, okay?
Okay.
Joe Burrow.
I think Joe would have to ask out.
It comes with him saying, I'm tired of this nonsense. I'm tired of
he's going to go to the
Jets?
Jets? On that defense now?
You asked for
Cincinnati
2 names.
East?
You asked for 2 names. I said I had 2 names. I'm
I
offering
did
you
ask
the 2
for 2
names.
names.
I don't.
Well, no, you gave me 2 names. I said the Trevor Lawrence one is interesting, actually, because I think that is a name that's going to be, I think, floated around this offseason. Quite honest with you, every time I watch Trevor Lawrence, I get more and more confused about how I feel about him. And it's just, honestly, I felt that way since his final year at Clemson. I just feel like he's been not bad, not great, sometimes boneheaded, sometimes puts the team on his back. But yes, that would be a name I think would fall into the correct bucket for the New York Jets. But no, I don't think that's why. I think if they maybe package picks to move up, whether it's next year, I could even see them moving back. Again, we don't know. 2027, we have no idea what those 3 picks and where they are going to be in the pecking order. And then obviously who's going to come out and who's not. Not every great junior is going to come out anymore. I mean, in the NIL era, you're making plenty of money. A lot of, especially for non-quarterbacks, a lot of those guys, might not come out. And we talk about how great that class is going to be. That's assuming all the juniors come out. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously right now the Colts pick this year is 32. As we sit here right now, and
I'll take the under.
Maybe I'll take the under back spot. Yeah, I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl.
I'll take the under on that pick being 32
on them winning the Super Bowl. But we'll see where that pick. Maybe they trade back and get more picks. I mean, look, at this point, I don't necessarily, if they keep all the picks and let's say that Colts pick is super late, I could see them moving back and getting even more picks and pushing as I throw my pen, kicking the can down the road a little bit more if there isn't an obvious guy there, considering also they're going to make their first round pick and they've got multiple second round picks.
Here's the other thing, and I don't want to be hypocritical because I am a strong believer in this, and this is the one place I will give them credit for what they did today. It's always good to put yourself front of the line when opportunities that nobody is talking about become available. And yes. I'll just throw out the most obscure example that I don't think is going to happen, right? If Jamar Chase went to Cincinnati and said, I want out, the Jets now become the center of any time that happens for the foreseeable future. Like, the Jets become the team that can offer any team the most.
I say A.J. Brown.
Right.
Are we sure that A.J. Brown situation is not going away? Maybe it's going to go away for the rest of this season, but it's not going to go away in January, February, March. Right?
You become a team that's at the front of the line for any of these type of situations, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is that, I guess, is a really good point as well, of understanding that every year there's some rando that becomes available. And hey, you know what? What if, I don't think so given the moves that they made today, but what if in a year the Colts don't want to sign Jonathan Taylor and he goes back on the trade block like he was a couple years ago? What if stuff goes, again, we play this what if game, but what if stuff goes really bad in Atlanta? What if Bijan says, I want out, I want a monster deal, and I want out?
Can I give you what I think is a more likely example that I don't think anyone's talking about? What if Justin Jefferson says, you guys can't figure this quarterback thing out, I'm out of here? Like, all of a sudden, and I'm not saying the Jets would do any of these, want to do any of these, should do, but you become the center of the NFL world. Everybody then has to beat your offer because you have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years and nobody else does. So yeah. It provides a general manager. This is where I would give him the benefit of the doubt. A general manager who is learning on the job, hasn't even completed a year yet. He has more tools in the toolbox to figure this out, and that's a good thing for a GM to have.
I've got one more hypothetical, just while we're on this before we end the show.
Love it.
I just thought about it. It involves taking on some money, and I know earlier I just said I don't think this makes sense, but in this context I do. What if they call Arizona and they say, we'll take on the rest of your Kyler deal, and we're going to give you we'll give you a first round picks. We're going to talk about picks, first round plus, but you're also giving us Marvin Harrison Jr.
I don't think Arizona would do that, but yeah, I would do it.
Maybe not, but is the current GM coach combination going to still be there next year? I don't know.
We'll see. Right.
So, and if they're looking to just get out of that contract, and maybe it's in their mind of like, well, we can recoup the first round pick we spent on Marv and get out of this contract and get something else. And now all of a sudden, Kyler in that case is still your bridge. I still don't think you're building your franchise around him, but to do that in order to get Marvin Harrison and then Garrett Wilson, okay, now you're cooking with something. So we'll see. Again, these are all hypotheticals.
Yeah, but they're only hypotheticals because the Jets have put themselves in a position for them to even entertain them. And the one other thing that I would add here, and we'll get out of here because we just did 40 minutes on the Jets trade deadline today. The one coach that I believe in the most right now is Tanner Engstrand. Like, I have very thoroughly been impressed with the job that he has done as the offensive coordinator, first year, calling plays and being the orchestrator of an offense. In the offseason, I'm sitting down with Tanner Engstrand, and I'm asking him to name quarterbacks that he wants. And if he tells me, to go back to our previous conversation, if he says, I want Trevor Lawrence, that's my guy. Like, it will work. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. If he is going to stand on the table in that way, then you got to do it. Like, you have to dangle whatever you need to in front of Jacksonville or whatever quarterback it ends up being and saying, I want that guy. And I know you and I somewhat agree on this. If he says it's Kyler Murray from Arizona, who just got benched today and they're going to go with Jacoby Brissett, if that's what he says he wants in his quarterback, then you kind of have to do it, right? Because you have the tools, you have the draft capital to go make those things happen. You have to give your offensive coordinator his guy at the position.
Agreed. I guess I'll end on this question because I have one more hypothetical for you. But it's one I want you to answer because I don't know how I feel about this. How do you feel about any of the San Francisco guys?
No, thank you. I'm okay. Now, again, if Tanner Engstrand was sitting here and he was on this call
Brock
with us,
Purdy's my guy.
All right. Well, I disagree with
you,
but we'll give it a shot.
Situation because look who's playing damn good right now for Kyle Shanahan. It's Mac Jones. And Mac Jones is under contract next year in San Fran. So,
have I told you my comparison for the San Francisco 49ers that I've been using on the radio?
I don't think so.
I have referred to them as a Honda Civic. It's not the flashy car at the stoplight. It's not the car that's going to get everybody's attention, but it just gets you to point A to point B. It's reliable. It's sturdy. It does what it needs to do. You put it on cruise control on the highway, it's going to get you there. Like the 49ers, it's not flashy. There's nothing like overly great about what they do. Get the job done, though. They do. I don't know how they do it.
And you know who doesn't get the job done? The New York Jets. But we will see if...
Thanks.
Look, hey, you know what? I'll say this one thing, Chris. As bad as you feel today, it's going to make for a lot more exciting offseason the next 2 off seasons. So,
here's the tough part. There is still so much good. Like they've got the 2 tackles. They've got a tight end. Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald are still on this team. Their trades for Brownlee look really good. Like Thomas and Malachi Moore.
Thomas, I liked him coming out. That's you,
are decent players. Like this isn't awful. It's not a barren wasteland, but it's just they have to get this offseason right in a big way.
The Titans still have a worse roster, by the way. Even after today, I think the Titans.
I also think the Saints have a worse roster than the Jets.
Yeah, Saints too. So, like, despite how bad things are, it still could be worse. But I mean, but it's also like the Jets, and I think that's the other side of it too. Of like, do we have any faith in the Jets to not be the Jets? And I know it's not fair. It's not fair to the new guys. It's not fair to the. But like, you also have to be reasonable to what everybody else has seen. And start to wonder. But you're right, Chris. At the end of the day, this was a major, major vote of confidence for the current regime. That they, at least in the medium term, are the guys. We'll see if it lasts.
Yeah, this was always my concern. I didn't want to trade any of the guys under contract because I didn't know if I trusted this regime to still be here at the end of the year, and that's still how I feel today. Oh, yeah, by the way, they traded Quinn Williams to the Cowboys, but didn't even really mention the other trade.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, everybody knows at this point where they went. And on the Cowboys side, quickly.
What are they doing?
Yeah, I hate to say that because Quinn Williams is a very, very, very good football player, so I usually am not against adding very, very good football players. But they gave up too much, and 2, it's still not going to matter for them for this season.
Their problems are more secondary related, I would think.
Well, they have a lot of defensive problems. Like they haven't been able to stop the run at all either. So I mean,
no, Jamie, they got Frank Clark because they needed
I know.
They needed to stop the run.
He will not be on their roster next year, by the way. I don't bet. Again, Quinn Williams, great player. Still think the Cowboys overpaid and still don't think they're a playoff team even with him.
I agree. And they also did the worst thing in the world by allowing the Jets to choose which pick they want in 2027. Yeah, give
them the early pick, too. Jerry, baby.
Just wild to me. That's going to do it. We're back on Friday. We'll get you ready for the football weekend. We'll preview the teams in action. We'll probably have some baseball stuff. The Mets have been hiring coaches. The Mets actually made a trade today, by the way. I don't know if you saw this, Jamie, but the Mets made a trade this afternoon.
I didn't. I saw the random Orioles trade that popped up.
Yeah, no, they acquired a reliever from the Tampa Bay Rays, but that's not what everyone came here for today.
Okay, we'll save that for another time.
If you are new, please rate, review, subscribe to the pod wherever you are listening to us. You want to watch the show, 2 places for you to do that. The NY Sports Index YouTube channel. You can also watch the program over on Spotify. We're back on Friday. Get you ready for the football action and whatever else happens in the sports world. Talk to you then.